Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, literally, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Right. Forgot to introduce my own self. I'm Ethan Alter from Yahoo Entertainment. So it's exciting to talk to you about this season. It's been a really fascinating season in that I feel like the show's world has gotten bigger and expanded, but the characters' interior lives has shrunk for everyone. They're going more and more inside themselves. Has that been an interesting contrast for you three to play, that idea, playing with the expanding scope versus limited or more insular characters?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the more chaos that's going on in the world, the smaller that we get and the smaller that we feel. I know that season 1, me specifically, started out with feeling like I could take over the world and was ready to take it on. And, slowly everything has just gotten so much bigger than me to the point where you end up feeling like nothing. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think that has pretty much just swallowed all of us.
Right.
I think ultimately also Sam is concerned and very much focusing always on character development and characters. It's sort of a character-driven show, more than a plot-driven show, I would say.
And there are attempts where the characters try to break out of that isolation. Like, I'm loving the sort of emerging friendship between Dom and Darlene in a way. They're both making efforts there, even though they're sort of in this convenient relationship, they're trying to get to know each other in a strange way.
Yeah, I think Dom sees a lot of herself in Darlene and sees that she can relate to her and get through to her that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, and vice versa. And I think, it's interesting because Dom is kind of one of the only people that actually knows everything about Darlene and everything that she's done. And so she's, in some ways, kind of the only person that she doesn't have to hide from. Obviously hide stuff, that's going on, but not of who she is.
Yeah, she can actually be herself instead of, yeah, exactly. Well, Portia, I mean, for Angela, it's funny because she is going right up to that edge of sanity where she's been for a while now. And she's she's almost as insular now as Elliot is in a lot of ways. What's it been like sort of charting her journey inwards to the center of this person?
Well, I mean, this season is particularly dark.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult because the second season I saw such a transition for her, obviously from the first, and each year it seems like we're peeling away onions, layers of like the onion as to who this person is, but it's really interesting to kind of take her in this direction because I can kind of see how this would unfold with the necessity for control and the positive affirmations of last season and, needing to kind of be that calculated and, even from the way she looks and this season just starting to see that all start to internally unravel has been, it was really, really fun to shoot. And it's also really fun to kind of explore, the depth of who she is.
Rami Malek gets to have an inner monologue going, so we sort of know what's on Elliot's mind. Do you ever come up with inner monologues for your three characters? Do you ever picture what they're saying in any given moment in your head?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think that's also, acting is having that for me. And you know what? It's so funny because a lot of the times I forget, like, there are times when someone will be saying a line to me and I'm like, what should I eat later? And it's so hard to stay focused a lot of the times, but just when you're actually listening to somebody and hearing what they're saying, those thoughts naturally go through your head. And when you're in that character and of course determine what you say to them. But there are times when I will, for certain scenes, have a mantra or something that I'm referring back to or thinking about or like some sort of inner monologue to myself, even if it's just like one line. So I do that.
I think that's a clever episode idea. Like, it was just like hearing
everyone's inner monologue.
Right, exactly.
So as opposed like Elliot having to experience us and just like watching his expressions as we're like taking him on with like our internal philosophies.
His eyes are getting really big right now.
There we go. What do you think Angela would sound like in her head? What would her inner monologue be if you could give us an example?
That'd be scary.
Pretty depressing. I don't know. I think about that. Obviously, it's kind of the same as to what Carly was saying. I don't know. It is really weird because when you're in it, I know what the feelings are. I don't know exactly what the thoughts are. For me, it's just like this visceral experience. But I'd be interested to, I don't know, probably really dark, awful things.
Self-doubt.
Yeah, self-doubt, insecurity, judgment.
But also, like, so with, I think all of us, such a strong conviction of what we are doing is the right thing and is the right thing for us and our cause and our purpose. And I think that we're all, driven by this motor that is this strong moral conviction that might, be questioned constantly, but is a very personal and individual. I know for Dom, she and Elliot are sort of trying to get at the same thing. They're just coming at it from different points of view in different ways, and they're both trying to make things better. They just have a different view of what that is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think we're all doing what we think we should be doing.
Exactly.
Right. Is it almost
For the
like
greater
I literally
good.
just said that.
Does it also free you up in a way? I mean, I imagine for Rami, he has to sort of act what is on the soundtrack, what Elliot's narrating. He has to sort of play to that. You get to be a little more opaque in maybe what's happening in your head. Do you find that enhancing your characterization in a way, not having that literalized so much?
Yeah, I think on one hand it makes Rami's job, I don't want to say easier, but like that inner monologue of what is going on is literally being said to him.
Right.
So, and he can do nothing and the audience already, can be like, okay, this is exactly what he's thinking because he's telling me what he's thinking. So I think that, it does it's the same freedom of who we want to be. But I think there is in a way more interesting of being like, I wonder what they are thinking.
Yeah, it's a little bit more mysterious for us.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a technically challenging show, and every season they sort of up the ante on technique. Last episode, for example, was a single one-take episode, basically, where it was designed to resemble one long tracking shot. And Grace, you had two sequences like that in season 2, where you're just it's supposed to there's no sense of cutting happening. So in those sort of technically demanding moments, how do you sort of keep your sense of performance, knowing that you have all these marks to hit, that you have a very specific job that way?
Well, I mean, what's crazy is we have so many oneers, and I think a lot of people don't even notice it. Because when I'm watching something else and that happens, I don't notice it either. But for me, technically, in episode 2, we did a whole tracking where Rami pushed me against the wall. We went into my face and came back, and it was Mr. Robot Christian holding me. And so, that type of thing is so hard with, not having your eyeline shift at all, or being able to realize that it's 2 different people while they're switching. And then it's just, there's so many things that can go wrong, but.
I find it so thrilling. I started in theater, and I love doing plays and being in the theater. So doing a one shot makes sense to me, narratively. It's the performance. You just fucking do it, and you don't get another chance. You don't get to stop, and if you stop, you fuck it up. So it's sort of, it adds to the whole performative,
You get to act.
Yeah, you have one chance to do it, and then you got to go back from the beginning. It feels more like real life, in a way.
Yeah, I think that there's something organic about it. It's helpful, but it's really hard. It's really hard. Like the crane shot over Angela, we did that 25 times.
27.
27 times. So that day I was exhausted because I ran like a mile. I had to run before. And that's the other thing that's really interesting about it, is that you have to match the energy before. Right. You literally have to. So memorizing what that moment was, which one are they going to use. Okay, so it's there, and sometimes we did playback where we saw, okay, so this is the da-da-da-da. Okay, what were those 5 moments before? Okay, so I was running a lot before I got into that, and sometimes it's like, where the oneers start is in really difficult moments. Like the oneer that started before the crane shot was when the security guard got hit. So it's like that interpretation of like that event that's carrying into this next event, and then you have to memorize the cues. And that's the other thing. Like, you do not want to be the person that fucks up. Oh my God. Because so many people are like, at the same time, you know, the camera operator's like, you know, like the crane, you know, like it's just move. It's a complete system in itself. And like there was one take where Sam went like, Portia, like, cause I stepped one step out of frame and it ruined it. So
when you had all those things you had to plug in and like turn, and normally, you know, we'll be like, oh, it's fine, they have it in the close up, or like, they already have that, it's not a big deal. Right. But like every single second you have to be there because you're watching it all in real time. Right. And then when you have 100 extras, like the episode 1, the whole arcade scene was in one shot. And you also have 100 extras that you can't control. And like
gunshots and blood and like like that scene when I kill Cisco, or when Dark Army kills Cisco.
The finale, and then it takes like
and then it's
20
4 in
minutes
the morning
to reset.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. You have like 2 minutes until the sun comes up. You're either really hot or really cold, and you haven't eaten in forever. It's just like.
So do you have like a leaderboard amongst yourselves for who blows the most takes? Like, do you sort of keep an eye out? Like, oh, okay,
we all do.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder who that would be.
It's not me.
Let's just blame Rami. He's not here.
Is there ever a feeling or a danger of feeling like a prop in those moments too? At the same time, knowing that you've got to be part of this larger, piece for the sequence to work, for the shot to work. How do you avoid feeling like just one of those, just one of the moving parts in it, and again, keeping the level of performance going?
I love that feeling. I weirdly love being, you know, at the end of the day, all the time, you're just one part of the story. You are one instrument that is being played for the story. And that comes into play when I have a lot of opinions as to, you know, what Angela might be feeling or what she wants and all those things. But at the end of the day, it's Sam's story, and I have to facilitate whatever that is. And the cool thing about Winners is kind of what you were saying, like, you're in it the whole time, and there's something exhilarating about that because you have to feed off the other person's energy, and both of you are both in it at the same time, and you have to be even more reliant on the other person, which is nice. And it's also like a video game. Like, I remember in the crane shot, I was like, to the stunt people, I was like, really try to catch me, because it was terrifying then, you know, because I really thought they were gonna catch me. In this one time when like I slammed the door on them, they got there first, and I like pushed it back. And Sam was like, that's not gonna work. Like, you don't have the strength of 4 people. And I was like, yes, I do. Let's use that take. You know, so like with those moments, it's like, it feels like a video game or just a different medium in a way that's really fun to explore.
And you're listening to everything and everyone and every single part of the piece of the puzzle and to yourself. And that's the most important part about acting.
I was just gonna say,
like listening.
When you're doing like coverage and it's on, you know, when it's on you, obviously you like give it your all, and then it goes on the other person. And of course you like try to, but obviously your performance isn't gonna be identical.
Well, it's also like this. It's like on your coverage, here's the camera, and I'm like right here.
Yeah, you're like looking at something else.
Yeah, really.
So in those oneers, it's like you gotta be here too.
Right. Yeah, you've always got to have that. Because of the sort of technical demands, what do you remember about your auditions for the show? Did Sam sort of warn you, this is what you're going to be doing? What sort of exercises did he have you do in the audition to sort of show that you'd be able to do that sort of thing?
Well, people always ask me about like how did I prepare to be a hacker and whatever, and for me, I never approached the character in that way. You know, I approached her as a human and as this person, and that all the hacking and technical stuff was just secondary to who she is. And so, because it's like, it's not about hacking. You know, when they tell me, when I have to say all this hacking jargon, I'm like, what does this mean? And have them walk me through it. But other than that, it's everything's programmed, it's coming up in real time, but honestly, we're hitting like Shift F and like Tab while it's doing that. So they, before we did the pilot, they brought us all in to have for this like lecture with this crazy hacker guy, and explained like everything and the mindset of a hacker and what they can do and all these things. Like hacking never even crossed my mind before the show. So, and not to call Rami out, but he's the worst typer ever. And so so it's not about that. But yeah.
A second.
But was he looking for your ability to move in time with the camera, like again, like in sort of the exercises that he put you through?
He met us at a gym, and we had to go through these. No,
it's pretty I mean, for me, it's pretty standard. I know probably for them too. It's very like standard audition. You just stand in a room and talk in a scene.
You figured you skipped everything else when you got on set. It's like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, and then you leave and you want to kill yourself. And then you get the job, and you're like, it doesn't make any sense.
You're like, okay, I'll stay alive. Yeah.
Season 1 of the show was definitely very much an Elliot-centric story, and Sam's writing was also very geared to that character. And as the show's gone on, it's expanded outward. We see more characters in our lives and their journeys and things. How much do you bring to the show from a female perspective to your characters? Because it's a very male-centric show in season 1, and they're writing for Sam's writing for Elliot in that way. What do you contribute to make sure that your voices are heard in your characters and also in your performance?
I mean, this is, a story that's evolving in one thing. And so we have no idea where it's going, and we find out before each season, but I knew like the beginning of the story was him and going into his world and, playing, like Portia was saying, of just playing that part. And because of Sam, I think he wrote, because the writing is so good, it makes our job, or at least my job, so much easier because it's all right there for me. And so because, Sam is who he is and so amazing, he wrote like strong women and gave these voices to us.
But they're like strong people also, like they're not, I don't feel like any of us are like girls, on a TV show.
Right.
Like we're not.
Like the neighbor.
Yeah, like it doesn't.
Like the cute neighbor.
Yeah, like the girlfriend or like the young wife. I just feel like any of us could be men, but we are, it's not necessarily female. I feel like the point of it is not necessarily female. I appreciate so much though that the role of like the FBI agent on the run trying to track down the culprit is sort of like, it's always, I feel like, designated for, it's like a very male archetype kind of idea, except for Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs or something. But that I just love that he made her a young woman and they're contemporary. And I just feel like we're all not like the girlfriend or the wife or the sister. And even if we are, we're not, it doesn't define us. If that makes sense.
I will say this too, because I do think that this is rare. Sorry, I feel like I'm trapped. I am trapped. Okay. I will say this too, because I think it's unfortunately rare, but Sam wants to know what our opinions are. So he's, at the end of the day, he says, you're playing these characters. You should know them better than I do. And I'm like, no, you know her more than me.
Tell me what to do.
No, please. But at the end of the day, there's a level of collaboration that I think is remarkable. And he's a great captain in that way, that it makes you feel, and on all levels, like with the cinematography, with Todd Campbell, watching them dance with each other on set every day is so cool. It's just so thrilling. And because the climate of the set is welcoming, and he actually wants to hear your opinions, and he's not holier than thou even though we feel that way. His level of humility and gosh, I don't know, his level of humility and willingness to make mistakes makes my job easier and more fun because I get to be creative and make really gnarly mistakes that like might not work out, you know? And that just makes me feel even more encouraged. Like I say, even with the oneers, it wasn't, you better get this right. It was, how are we gonna make this great? And that's always what the attitude is. It isn't, this better be at this standard and fill these shoes and this is my image. It's, how can we make this and change it on the day, change the lines on the day, like change. And when, I feel like when, you know, I don't know, when you have a captain that like that and it becomes this collaborative effort, it feels so great. It feels like you're actually in a creative process as opposed to being someone that shows up and hits their mark and, you know, says the lines.
I think he makes us, it's an environment where we feel empowered as women, as people, as actors in our job and in what we're doing. And I think that translates onto the screen because you're not walking into your mark like feeling like scared or like you can't take risks or you can't do this and feeling small and not being able to then, it makes it harder to come out of that.
No, now more than ever, it feels like that environment matters, where all voices are honored and everyone has an input. Is there a moment where you remember sort of standing up for your character in a way, or pushing back against something and saying, "This is I actually feel."
Every day.
Right.
And that's what's great is I'm like, that's so stupid. Why would I do that? You know, and
She says that a lot.
I remember specifically actually season 1 when there was a scene between me and Mr. Robot in the arcade when we got into this huge fight and he like threw the computer. Sam really wanted me to be, I did it and how you see it. And he was like, you know, I feel like she's more like scared in this moment by him. And I was like, no, this is my fucking brother. Like, I'm not, like, that's not, and I just felt so strongly about that. And he was like, great, because he knew that he wasn't gonna get an authentic performance out of me because I didn't believe that myself. And so he let that be that, but I was like, I disagree. That's not what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, like showrunners or directors, like you would just be like, okay, sure.
Right.
We get to watch any take or every take that we just did. We're very much, we're so lucky in that we're so a part of the process.
But we argue.
Right. For the because it's there's so many moving parts to the show, do you sort of wish you had more scenes together or a chance to interact more? Is it hard sort of always being off in your own little part of the universe?
I feel that way a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in season 2, I was like always with these FBI dudes. But you know, this season I got to be a lot more with Carly. But yeah, I miss Portia. I never get to see each other.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all, Bird.
Yeah, it's weird. You know, season 1, most of my stuff was with Rami. And season 2, like, we didn't have as much stuff together. And like, Portia, like, every time we'd get so excited to have scenes together, and Grace too. And because season 1, we'd have table reads every week. And so we'd see each other all the time. And then seasons 2 and 3, you have your big one at the beginning. And then you were like not working with someone, so you barely ever see them, where we were like used to being together all the time. So it was like, wait, I miss you guys.
Sam has sort of talked about having the sort of show Bible or the original script that sort of indicate where everything was going. Do you, has he shared that with you? Do you know where everything's ultimately headed, or is it really?
I mean, yes and no. Not everything, but there are like some little things.
What do you know?
Well, I knew in the.
We need to talk after
I mean, I know sort of about next season, but no. At the beginning of every season, I mean, I wasn't here in season 1, but he calls you and he tells you for about an hour what you're like. Literally, you just sit there and listen, and he tells you everything that's happening, not only with you but with everyone on the show.
But just for that season.
Just for that season, yes.
And Unless there's something that you're keeping from us.
Oh, wow.
He's watching right now.
Yeah.
So.
None of us have any idea where this is going.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
At all. So once episode 10 comes out, us and the rest of the world are all going to be on the same page.
Is it frustrating? Would you prefer to know, or is it nice not knowing? How much knowledge do you want?
I don't want to know.
I think we all have different opinions. I like knowing. Yeah.
I like not knowing about where ultimately it's going to end, but I do, and I used to think that I didn't like to be informed by what I was doing. You know, my experience with working on TV was always, you know, episode to episode, not knowing what was going to happen, and I sort of liked that in a way that it feels more like real life, like you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if I was to say, you know, get pregnant, I wouldn't want to know that because that would maybe inform what I was going to do before. But with a show like this, it's so, the material is so, it's so much and hard. And I really appreciate knowing what I'm doing in that season. Like in this season, I love to know everything. I think that I'm not sure how the show would work otherwise, but
Yeah, I definitely like knowing everything in the beginning. You know, of course I knew I was his sister before, but knowing, you know, even last year when he was like, you kill like Susan Jacobs, if I didn't know everything about that and know my relationship to her, you know, episode 1, when I even say her name, that would have not meant anything to me. But knowing all of that before, then it does. But I don't want to know what's going to happen later. But I definitely, like, everything my character needs to know, I want to know.
I think I want to know because even if I know, I'm not going to know, if that makes any sense. Like, and Sam has a really great way of doing that. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as you know one piece of information, he'll completely point you in a different direction. So even if he were to say, well, you guys are all going to end up here, it's like, what? How? I would have never predicted where Angela is now at all. And so, and I guess that's kind of what's exciting about being on the show, too, is that you get to grow in that way. Right. Like, I feel like I'm still creating something all the time. Like, even now in our downtime, I find myself thinking about it.
Right. Well, picking up that, I mean, you've gone for 3 seasons. Hopefully, there are many more. But do you already know that there are specific lessons you've learned on this show that you've already taken to other projects, or that you hope to take to other projects, and things that you play?
Sam has made me like spoiled. Well, that, but such a better actor, and literally has taught me so much that it is completely, you know, changed me as an actor and the way I approach material and the way I think about it, in just so many ways that it's like, it's been the best acting class that you could ever imagine. And so...
Yeah, he's like the nicest person in the world, but he doesn't really care about being polite. So he'll say, I don't believe you. And as an actor, that's horrible to hear.
No.
Yeah. Grace, you know. So you cannot lie. Like, you cannot phone it in.
You know what the biggest thing that I've learned from him is having my time. Is like, I think as actors, you see lines, they say something, you need to get that out. You know, it's like, and he's really big on having that. If that moment between you guys is going to end up in a 2-minute silence, like, then that's what it is. And so for me, taking that to other things of like being in a scene with someone and allowing that to sink in and allowing, you know, myself the freedom to not have to rush, and taking those, like, really taking those moments, because that's a big thing he'll always say to us is he's like, take that in. And a lot of the times, you know, I feel like pressured to just get it out. And so really, like, that to me has been like the biggest acting lesson ever. But he's gonna get a lot of us in trouble, and he already has gotten some people in trouble, where one of the writers was in a different writer's room and was like, well, this is stupid, or something like he could say in our writer's room, and everyone was like, excuse. Like, I feel like the next show I'm gonna be like, well, what the fuck is this about? And they're gonna be like, excuse me.
He doesn't take it personally, which is awesome. And
He just doesn't have an ego about it.
No, he doesn't have an ego. And I think that's, you know,
They're
as
like
clever.
creepy cult members.
I know.
I'm like, I always say, I'm like, I would blindly follow you.
Yeah, I do find that. I was like, how many times today have I called Sam a genius? I need to tone it down, weirdo. But I will say that about time, that you get to own your time. I have more confidence. Sometimes, like there was a moment this season where it just wasn't working, and it is only because of working with him. There was on something else I've done in the past, it didn't work, and it was not good. It was like the director was like, what's up? Like,
Right.
let's do that. What's the issue? You know, and with Sam, he was like, well, do you want to just cover somebody else? And like, do whatever you want, like go take time. And I was like, yeah, but also that's not wrong. That like, if I have to take time to get somewhere, to allow myself to know that it's allowed. That's big. And also the cinematic lessons. I mean, if you sit with people like Todd Campbell and Sam and the writers, there's a lot that you just learn by being in that environment, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
It also instills what you were saying before, both of you, like a really trusting relationship with Sam, and he's not going to move on from a take or from a scene if he really, really, really feels like he has it. So you will work the hardest that you possibly can to get to that point. And even if you don't feel like you've gotten to that point, you trust that he has gotten to that point and that he feels comfortable in moving on. But he's established that in us, I think. Well, maybe we've all done it together, but yeah, there's this really trusting relationship that he's not gonna, it's his baby. Like, he's not gonna, do something that he doesn't want to do. So you always will come to feel, even if you don't feel that great about it, that that you got it somehow.
Well, this episode leaves things in a very cataclysmic place. Without spoiling, obviously, what can you say about where we're headed for each of your characters? What can we sort of expect as we run?
Well, let me tell you everything. I think this season really, we were just saying, like, every episode really is a game changer. And as you can tell, it's really ramping up. And it gets, for me, I think for everybody, very intense.
Yeah.
Take that.
Dark and sad and dark. I think he was watching a lot of Breaking Bad when he was writing this season. It's very fucked
really
up.
Good, though.
Yeah.
Very good.
You can expect more good stuff.
Excellent. We'll take that. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Mr. Robot Wednesdays on USA. Thanks so much.
Thank you.